I was GM for the Mets from '97 until 2003 and was involved in negotiating the infamous Bobby Bonilla 25-year buyout. Early in his career, Bobby Bonilla was a dynamic offensive player. Switch hitter, could hit from line to line, hit for average, hit for power, drove in runs. He was a big run producer, a middle-of-the-lineup kind of guy. In fact, the first time the Mets signed him, they made him the highest-paid player in Major League Baseball. When we brought Bobby Bonilla back the second time with the Mets, expectations were different. He was going to be a role player. Bonilla wanted to be an everyday player. That opportunity didn't really exist on our roster, and therein lied some part of the rub. Valentine used him as a role player, and there was a time in June when actually Bobby Valentine told Bonilla to get a bat he needed in a pinch hit. Bonilla said, "No thanks, I'm good." After the game, Bonilla and Valentine got into it in the clubhouse. The next day, same thing happened, and it was at that point that I probably should have thought about releasing Bobby Bonilla, but I thought to myself, it's my deal, it's not a great deal. I want to try to find a way to get him back on track and trade him and not go to the owner to talk about releasing him. Probably the straw that broke the camel's back was we're taking on the Atlanta Braves in the National League Championship Series. It's Game 6 in Atlanta, and we're going extra innings.
3-2 pitch. Bring on the Yankees.
Kenny Rogers walked in the winning run, and it was a devastating loss, but Bobby Bonilla and Ricky Henderson were actually in the clubhouse playing cards when Kenny Rogers walked in that winning run. They were not on the bench, they weren't cheering for their teammates, they weren't really part of anything in trying to win that game. When the wintertime, Bobby Bonilla had a charity bowling tournament that he put on. The media would show up to be around the players and ask questions. Well, at that event, Bonilla told the media, be ready for fireworks for next year. Be ready, I'm gonna stir it up, I'm gonna cause trouble, I wanna be an everyday player. It was at that point that it was clear that we actually had to go back to ownership and try to find a way to get out of the deal. Ownership brought up the idea of trying to work out a buyout with Bonilla. The first time Bobby Bonilla had been with the Mets organization, he had some deferred compensation. In fact, he's still getting $500,000 a year from the first contract he had with the Mets. And it was at that point that ownership told me, go to the accounting department and ask them to crunch the numbers. The plan was that they would invest Bonilla's $5.9 million that was due to him in 2000 with Bernie Madoff. So when I went to the accounting department, what Fred Wilpon, the owner of the Mets, had asked is have them crunch numbers and try to calculate that if the Madoff fund had delivered 6% over 25, 30 years, 10% over that period of time, 16% over that period of time, what would the $5.9 million turn into? And what the accounting department came back with was that the Mets could make millions of dollars while investing Bonilla's $5.9 million with Bernie Madoff in his fund before they had to pay any money out to Bobby Bonilla. The $5.9 million that was due Bonilla in 2000 turned into a different sort of a deal. It was deferred for 10 years, and then starting in 2011, every July 1st for 25 years, Bonilla collects $1.19+ million from the Mets organization. And from their perspective, it looked like a win-win. Bonilla could get his money, deferred compensation, a strong interest rate, and the Mets could make money not only to pay Bonilla, but to make money with his money. When ownership suggested that we defer this money, first of all, I'm already feeling badly that I'm the one who traded for Bobby Bonilla and put the organization in this position. Owners don't like to eat money, doesn't taste good. They like money, they don't like to eat it. So the concept of deferring it where the organization could make money gave me a sense of relief. By deferring Bobby Bonilla's $5.9 million, it freed up some cash flow for the 2000 season, which gave us the opportunity to get Mike Hampton from the Houston Astros and set the course for the 2000 World Series.
Hampton with a count of 3-1. For the first time since 1986, the Mets are going to the World Series.
The Madoff scandal has cast a cloud over the New York Mets.
The team's finances are indeed in shambles, all as a result of Bernie Madoff. And now they're on the hook for $29 million owed to Bonilla. And by the way, those payments start coming due in July.
I have talked to Bobby a little bit about the deferred compensation and going back to actually everything that happened, and he realizes that he's probably doesn't have the greatest relationship with New York baseball around the Mets, media, the fans, and everything else.
Make you move.
But he also understands that he handled his money very well. Deferred compensation was always part of a vision for him, stemming from his agents and their sort of background as well. So he's been a good money manager, just not the greatest of teammates.
You got a problem?